Good evening, everybody. I mean, you can't have a conference in Goa and say this is all about James Bond and show us audio, visual, and leave all of us wondering, where are all those women in the bikinis? You know? I'm just going to take a minute to try and get this going. Great. So I'm delighted to be here, and what I want to do is really over the next 45 minutes or so, try and share some stories. Like all of you, I've often wondered, what is it that makes some people win? What is it that makes some people succeed, and some people who seem to promise a lot don't actually end up winning, don't actually end up becoming the kind of people they could have become? I've often wondered, what is it that makes one leader turn a group of people into a world-beating team? And equally, there are several examples where you have a group of very talented people who come together but don't actually end up winning. And over the last several years, I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with a lot of people and perhaps learning a lot of lessons from them. And what I will do is to try and share some of those lessons and hopefully have some fun as we do it, to try and say, hey, what is it really that helps people to actually end up becoming great leaders and leading winning teams? I want to start from the beginning, and I want to tell you, I was a little boy growing up in Jaipur, and I had just one dream. I wanted to fly a kite. Yeah? How many of you here have ever flown a kite in your life? Yeah, okay. You know, if you've flown a kite, there's one lesson you would have learned, which is this. It's extremely difficult to get started. Yeah? Once a kite is up in the air, anybody can fly it. Or as Jeffrey Boycott would say, even my mother-in-law can fly it after that. But getting started is extremely difficult. And many of us actually try a little bit, try and see if I can get the kite up, and we don't succeed, we give up and we say, bahut dhoop hai yaar, it's not good for my skin, I think I'll go and play marbles. So we don't even try, we give up before we can actually get started. And which is why I think anybody who started something in his life truly is someone special. And how many of you here are actually running a business that you've started? Can I see a show of hands, please? Wow, fantastic. Let's hear it for all those people, because I think, I keep saying this. People like me, there are lots of us who end up working in organizations or running a business which somebody else has started, and that's so much easier. But starting something, I think it takes something special. But here's another piece of interesting news, which is if you think about what it takes to fly a kite, all you need is someone to help you. If you can get someone to actually hold that kite and hoist it for you, you will find that you can actually fly that kite pretty easily. Okay? So all you need is some help. But most of us are too scared to ask for help. Because asking for help is like saying, I'm not good enough. Asking for help is like admitting that I cannot do something. And most of us would rather go through our lives not doing something rather than saying, you know what, let me ask for help. Let me try and get someone to help me to achieve my goals. And I think that's a big lesson in itself for most of us, which is you can achieve a hell of a lot if you're willing to say that I don't know something. Maybe I'm not sure how to do it, and maybe I can ask for help. And if you can get someone to hold that kite up for you, you can actually achieve a hell of a lot more than you might have otherwise thought possible. It's interesting, after as a little kid, I grew up, and then I went and studied in one of those lesser known schools of business in Gujarat. And I was very excited when I got my first job, and I went to work for Hindustan Lever, which is what the company was called in those days. And if you wanted to make a career in sales and marketing, this was the place to go. It was this university which you went to after you finished college, and you thought you could learn a lot. And for me, I was very excited to go to work, because I thought on my first day, this is what would be waiting for me. And boy, I couldn't wait to get started. And I thought I had to make such tough decisions like, is it time to replace... Good question. I had to take decisions like, is it time to now replace Sridevi with Madhuri Dixit? And I said, wow, that takes a hell of a lot of doing. And I was looking forward to all those long hours at work, watching one of those films being shot. And I thought this must be really exciting to go to work. And you know what happened? On my first day, this is where they sent me. Yeah? And they said, now go and learn what it takes to actually sell soap. So here I was, I found myself in the heat and dust of a small town in this country, trying to sell soap. And I think there's an important lesson for all of us. Maybe, sorry? This was in UP. I was actually in Azamgarh trying to sell, so, life can be tough. And in those days, we didn't even have great cops to save us, So life could have been tough even in those days in Azamgarh. And here I was with two lessons. The first one, in life, things seldom happen the way you want them to. So be prepared for the unexpected. You might think life will go one way. Chances are it'll actually go the other way. But that was only the first lesson. Second and one was this, that in any business, if you want to understand what makes the business tick, you've got to be out there where your consumer is. You've got to be out there where your customer is, parting with hard-earned cash for your products or services. And therefore, as kids coming out of business school, it's tempting to believe that we will now take very big strategic decisions sitting inside air-conditioned offices. Nothing works. You've got to be out there where your customer is. You've got to be out there where your consumer is buying your product, and that's when you will learn what makes your business tick. So, instead of trying to sit there and understand why Lux was the secret of Zeenat Aman's beauty, here I was trying to figure out why Zahira Begum does not use Lifebuoy. Yeah. But you learn, and you learn a hell of a lot as you start doing these things. And it's really in tribute to some of the lessons that I might have learned from all these people that I wrote a couple of books which actually carry all the lessons that I might have learned, lessons that I think made a difference to my life, and I'm hoping, could make a difference to other people's lives too. It's, it's all about little stories which you can tell yourself to say, hey, maybe, just maybe, there's another way to do things which can actually change your life. And to give you a sense of what the underlying principle of all of this is, I want to take you to a place far away. This is Florence in Italy. And that's where you have the statue of David. It's one piece of marble, some 20 feet tall, sculpted by the great Michelangelo. Anybody who goes to Florence and comes back is, truly impressed by what he sees and says, wow, what a piece of work. I don't think they also come back knowing the story behind the sculpting of David. And the story goes that this piece of marble, some 20 odd feet long, had been lying for many, many years. And it was shown to several sculptors, and each of them looked at it and said, nah, this is flawed. This is a bad piece of marble. Can't make anything out of it. And so it remained for many years until Michelangelo came along and he said, yeah, let me try and see what I can make out of it. And he takes this slab of marble to his workshop and gets to work on it and starts hammering at it to try and make something out of it. And one night when he's at work, a little girl walks into the workshop and asks, sees him hammering that marble. And she asks him, why are you hitting it so hard? And he looks at her, smiles, and he says, young lady, there's an angel inside this rock, and I'm trying to help set that angel free. And if you think about it, we're all like that piece of marble. At some stage in our lives, we've been dismissed as flawed. बेकार है, कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, ये तो मतलब बुद्धू है, इसका ये सपना देखता है धंधा करेगा, पता नहीं काम नहीं कर रहा है, right? At some stage, we've been dismissed as being a flawed piece of marble. And all it took was for someone to come along, one sculptor to come along and chip away at those unwanted pieces of marble to allow that angel inside to come through, to allow that leader inside to actually emerge. And I think that's the message that I want all of us to remember, that there is actually a leader inside each of us. Okay? And leadership is not something that you need to try and now say, hey, I need to learn something, I need to get something I don't have, I need to try and acquire skills that I don't have to become a leader. Not true. There's a leader inside, and most times what you need to do is to chip away at those unwanted pieces of marble. There are lots of cobwebs in our head. There are lots of things going around in our system, in our mind, which you just need to kind of take away. And if you do that, you will find that you can allow the leader inside to actually emerge. And I want to tell you, if I have to tell you stories around leadership, I want to start from, that ultimate symbol of supremacy, which is the highest peak in the world, which is Mount Everest. Okay? Now, everybody knows that the first people who climbed Mount Everest were Tenzing and Hillary. Okay? Now, it's an interesting story. Apparently, it wasn't the first time that Sir Edmund Hillary managed to actually get on top of Mount Everest. He had tried several times and he had failed. And apparently, after one such failed mission, he stood at base camp that afternoon and looked up at Mount Everest and screamed at no one in particular. And he said, "You Mount Everest, don't be so proud. I'll get you one day. I'll get you because you're only a mountain. You're not going to grow. I'm a human being. I'll grow. I'll get better. And I'll get you one day." And I think it's a good attitude to have. Never mind what problem you're facing. Never mind what challenge you're facing in your life. Good idea to remember Hillary's words and tell that problem, "Hey, you're only a problem. You'll stay that way. I am a human being. I'll get better. I'll get you one day." And I think it's a great way to look at it. And if you think about Mount Everest itself and the fact that Tenzing and Hillary went up and climbed the mountain, I have a question for you. Think about it. If two people want to climb a mountain, what's the most important thing they need? Determination. Yeah. Willpower. In fact, willpower is a great answer because not only do you need the willpower, but given the risk of climbing a mountain, you also need a will. Yeah, you might want to leave that behind just in case something is going to go wrong. But you need determination. You need willpower. You need, what else? Sorry? Attitude. You need attitude. You must have an attitude that says, "I can get it." You need a plan. I think that's a great one. If you don't have a plan, you won't get anywhere. You need teamwork. If you have two people, you need to learn to work together. It's often said in our country, if one man has to do something, it's easy. If two people have to do it, you have a problem. Because first, they have to learn to work with each other. You need teamwork. You need to start trusting each other. If you have a guy working with you, you can't be worried about climbing Mount Everest and then wondering, the guy behind you, I hope he doesn't get you. So you think it's important, yeah? But you know what? You need all of these. You also need equipment. You need a good, solid oxygen tank. You need shoes. You need those goggles. You probably need some training, okay? You need to get trained on how to do this. You need maybe some luck on your side. You need to have good weather conditions. But you know what? If two people want to climb a mountain, the most important thing they need is actually the mountain. Yeah? Yeah. You need a mountain. Because without that, nothing else happens. All of us need a goal in our lives. We need something that excites us. You need that mountain. Otherwise, you can go through your life saying, "Arey, kya kare yaar, bad luck hai." Look at me. I'm unfortunate, because of the duty, I only get the small oxygen tank. Those guys get those big ones in China. Or we can say that, I'm unlucky. I didn't get the training. I didn't go to that fancy, Indian Institute of Mountaineering or IIM or whatever it was. So I'm not able to do what I need to do. Or we can say that the weather is not on our side. The government is not on our side. The environment is not helping us. None of those matters. What you need is a mountain. Once you have a mountain, once you have a goal in your life, you will discover that everything else falls into place. Suddenly, equipment doesn't matter. You will find somebody will give you equipment, almost give it to you for free and say, "Go and make it." You will discover that, you get up in the morning and it's all cloudy and rainy, and you say, "Hey, terrific. This means that in the afternoon it's going to be bright and sunny." Okay? So you'll start feeling that you can actually achieve things. So what you need is a mountain. And I know 2.5 days in Goa can be great fun, but if you ask me, just remember one little bit, which is before you leave this place, just make sure that on a piece of paper you've written down for yourself what's your mountain. What's that goal that you are seeking to actually achieve in your life? And once you have a mountain, you will discover that almost everything else will fall into place. I now want to tell you the story of a man called Karli Takacs. Anyone here has heard of him? Nobody, which is very good because now I can tell you anything about him and you have to believe me. Okay. Takacs was a shooter, one of the world's best pistol shooters. He was also a sergeant in the Hungarian army. And we're now talking about 1938. He's the world's best shooter. He's just won the world championship in shooting. And he's also, a fairly respected soldier in the Hungarian army. And widely tipped to win a gold medal in the upcoming Olympic Games, which would have been in 1940. Life is good. Young man, 28-year-old, best shooter in the world, sergeant in the army, looking forward to winning an Olympic gold medal. Life couldn't have been better for this man. But suddenly, one morning, disaster struck. He was actually practicing throwing hand grenades as part of his army routine. And one grenade, before he could throw it, exploded in his hand. And it took away that right hand from his shoulder. The hand that was the world's best shooting hand was gone. The hand that was potentially a gold medal winning hand was gone in a jiffy. And Takacs found himself in hospital, lying on a bed, no hand. Okay. Now, most of us, would have felt, hey, why me? Why does God choose me to have these things happen? And we would have all understood if we had never heard again about Takacs and this man had gone on to live like a recluse in some corner of Hungary. One more example of how, fate can play tricks with people, all the time. But that's not what happened to Takacs. That guy was sitting on his hospital bed and he said, you know what? I'm lucky I'm alive. I could have died on that one. I've just lost a hand. And he said to himself, so what if I've lost my right hand? I still have, the attitude. I still have that winner's mindset. I still have hunger in my belly. I still want to achieve something. I still have, a lifetime ahead of me. I'm young. I'm only 28. And I still have, I still have a left hand. Okay. So within 3 weeks of being in hospital, within 3 weeks of losing that hand, Takacs starts going back to the shooting range to learn to shoot with his left hand. Okay. And very quickly starts a hand which until then could hardly pick up a cup of tea and take it to his lips without spilling the tea. That hand, he said, I'm going to now train to start to shoot. Okay? And of course, to cut a long story short, 1940, the Olympic Games didn't happen because of the war. 1944, the Games got cancelled. So only 10 years later, 1948, the Olympic Games came back to London. And Hungary chose Takacs to go and shoot to represent Hungary. And if you check the record books, you will discover that in the 1948 Olympic Games, the winner of the gold medal in the shooting event was a man shooting with his left hand. Yeah. Now I can imagine lots of you sitting over there saying, मैं भी ऐसा ही करता अगर मैं होता तो. If I was Takacs, I would do the same thing. The truth is, there are times in our lives when we all find ourselves like Takacs. We think we've got it all going. We think we've got a good thing going for us. We are about to be on top of the world and suddenly everything goes wrong. And when that happens, I think it's a good idea to think of this man. It's a good idea to think like this man. And I'd like to share with you 3 lessons that I'd like to take away from Karli Takacs. First one, focus on your strengths. Don't worry about what you don't have. Most of us, tend to worry about that missing piece. I often think that, in our country, most of us have a PhD in our weaknesses by the time we are 21. I mean, as little kids, we are constantly being told what we are not good at. Think about it. If there was this little boy, 10-year-old, who, plays football extremely well, and he might just become the Ronaldo that India needs, and imagine that he also writes lovely letters to his grandmother, and might just turn out to be a great author someday. So 10-year-old kid, great footballer, good author, but weak in maths. Okay? What do his parents do? Maths tuition. They don't send him to a writing school to say, let's make him the world's best author. They don't send him to football coaching to say, maybe he can become a great footballer. They say, focus on your weakness. Maths nahi hai. And even better, if you don't do well in maths, we'll stop your football. Yeah? So we all grow up worrying about what we don't have. And you'll find this true. Look at lots of people And you'll think he has everything, and yet there'll be that one thing. Kya kare mere pa? You know, that one little missing piece is the one that we all seem to be looking for. So I think good idea to focus on your strengths. Don't worry about what you don't have. Second one, I think it will happen sometime that you fall. Things will go wrong. You will fall. But like Prakash, learn to get up quickly. In his case, within 3 weeks of losing his right hand, he was back on the shooting range trying to get to shoot with his left hand. What happens to many of us is when we are down, if you don't get up quickly, you'll find other people come and say, oh, so bad, so unlucky, and push you further and further into the ground. Okay, don't let that happen to you. Think like a boxer. If you're down, you've got to get up in the count of 10. One more second, and it's all over. So I think it's a good idea to learn to get up quickly if you fail, if you falter, and find yourself falling down. And of course, the most important one, which is this. Winning a gold medal is not about the hand, it's about the head. Okay? So don't worry about all those resources, training, and all of that. I think it's really about how you can train yourself to think. And attitude really is what can help most of us win. It can help Prakash lose a hand and yet go on to win a gold medal, and it's probably something that can help all of us to achieve a lot more than we might have thought possible. I want to tell you a little story about a man who was arguably one of the world's best cricketers, Ricky Ponting. Scored lots and lots of runs, and I think he can teach all of us a leadership trick. If you follow cricket, you'll know that Ponting was particularly good at finding the gaps. He could place the ball wherever he wanted. And you put the field wherever you like, and Ponting will still find the gaps and score those boundaries. And apparently, someone asked him this question one day and said, hey, Ricky, what's the secret? Tell us, how do you manage to do this? How do you manage to find the gap every time? And Ponting's answer was quite revealing. He said, almost every great batsman in the world, when he goes out to bat, he looks around at the field, and the minute he just takes one look around, any batsman will find that all the fielders get imprinted in his mind. And he can almost shut his mind and he can see all those fielders exactly where they are. And Ponting says, in my mind, after I look around, I only see the gaps. I don't see the fielders. It's just the gaps that stay in my head. Okay? And maybe that's a good way to try and look at our lives. What happens to many of us is we look around and we see problems. And we see problems all around us. We don't see the opportunities. The truth is, it's the field which is the same for both the players. One man sees the fielders, the other man sees the gaps. And for all of us, I think it's important to be able to train our minds to find those opportunities, to keep looking for those opportunities rather than look for the problems. The truth is, you will find what you're looking for. If your mind says there are problems outside, you will see only problems. You will see problems all around you. But if you tell yourself that there are opportunities, suddenly your mind will keep looking at opportunities all around. And the truth is, what's the difference? Why is it that one person seems to see opportunities and the other person sees the problems? The world is not different. The environment is not different. The business situation is not different. It's just the thinking inside that man's head which makes the difference. So, don't wait for governments to change or policies to change or economy to get better or rupee to get stronger. Don't wait for all of that. In your case, if you're exporters, maybe not a bad idea. Let the rupee be where it is. But I think the truth is, it's not about, I think it was being referred to earlier, that our temptation is to externalize the problem rather than think of it for yourself and say, what can I do differently which will allow me to actually see a completely different world? It's a good lesson to learn perhaps from Ricky Ponting. I want to now tell you another little story which comes out of China, and it's about how to catch a rabbit. And I think in times like these, when there are so many opportunities around us, there are so many business ideas, I'm sure lots and lots of things happening around you, and you're wondering, what do I do next? What's the next big business idea? What should I be doing differently? Should I be diversifying? Should I look at doing something else? Maybe there's a lesson for all of us from this story of how to catch a rabbit. So be with me now for the next 2 minutes as I tell you. Imagine that you are in a little garden and there are lots of rabbits running around. There's a white rabbit, a brown one, a gray one, all nice, fat, plump rabbits running around, and you want to catch a rabbit. So what do? You say, hey, I can see this white rabbit, let me go after it. So you start running after the white rabbit, but the rabbit just goes one step further ahead, and you say, let me catch it, and you start running after it, and the rabbit is still one step ahead, and you're about to grab it and catch it, but the rabbit is still out of reach. And as you fall, you see this brown rabbit next to you, and you say, brown was always my favorite color. So now you say, let me catch the brown rabbit. So now you start going after the brown rabbit, and the brown rabbit is just going a little further ahead, and you try to catch the brown rabbit, it's still one step ahead, you're about to catch it, but you find that you can't catch the brown rabbit. And then as you fall and you're saying, what do? You see this cute little gray rabbit looking at you. And you remember reading in some magazine, gray is the color of the season. So you say, now let me catch the gray rabbit. And this goes on through the entire day, okay? And you are working hard, you are tired. Arey boss, 1 minute bhi baitha nahi hu main. I've been running all day long. Kya karte ho? Catching rabbits. How many rabbits have you caught? 0. Okay? So maybe there's good advice for all of us, which is to catch a rabbit, that's the way to do it. Focus on one rabbit. Catch it, put it in your pocket, then worry about the next rabbit. Okay? So many of us can make the mistake of trying to catch all the rabbits, and we think you're trying to catch one rabbit when you say, Arey, I was at that fair and I saw somebody else who's made a big business out of catching brown rabbits. I think we should also do brown rabbits. And then you come back and you find, Arey, that fellow from our same state, same village, he's built such a big business on grey rabbits. So you say, yeah, I think we should also get into grey rabbits. And what happens is you keep flitting from one rabbit to another to another. And you can be working very hard. You've really tried your best. You've not left 1 minute sitting idle, and yet you haven't caught a rabbit. So good idea to focus on one rabbit. And here's the advice really, which is if you find that you cannot catch your rabbits, change your strategy. Don't change your rabbit. Stay focused on the rabbit that you want to catch, and you will discover that you can actually, once you catch that rabbit, then you can say, okay, now I've got one, now let me go after another one. Okay. Another story that comes out of China, and I know China is hot for all of you, is about the Chinese bamboo. Okay. It's a fascinating story of a tree that grows to an enormous height. This Chinese bamboo tree grows to a height of about 80 feet. Okay. That's like a 8-storied building almost. Well, 10-storied if you live in Bombay. That's how tall this tree can grow to. Here's the interesting bit. It takes about 5.5 years to grow to its full height of 80 feet. For the first 5 years, nothing happens. You plant the seed, you put the fertilizer, give it water. For the first 5 years, all you see is a squiggly little plant coming out of the ground. All the work for the first 5 years is underground. A massive, complex root structure is taking shape under the ground. Okay? And it's only after 5 years that this little thing suddenly starts shooting off. And in 6 months' time, it grows to its full height. It's about the organization that you're trying to build. And I think learning to build great teams, learning to attract great people, learning to build a great organization can often be the best thing you can do for yourself as a leader. So what I want to do now is to try and share some lessons around building great teams and lessons in teamwork, which I think all of us can perhaps benefit from. And usually when you talk about lessons in teamwork, you tend to think, we'll learn lessons from some GE or some, great company, or maybe from Harvard Business School. Not true. I'm going to try and share a lesson which is from the streets of Mumbai, okay? And it's from the people who do the dahi handi every year. All of you know the story of, all familiar with the dahi handi. Every year you have these guys getting together to try and break the pot and make some money out of it. And I think those Govindas can teach all of us a few lessons in what it takes to build a great team. And I'm going to share with you six lessons on what it takes to build a great team. Here's the first one. just make sure that there's one common goal and that's visible to the entire team. So if you look at all those Govindas who get together to form the pyramid, all of them can see that pot, right? And they all know that's the one we are after. You cannot have a great team if one of those guys in the team says, "Arey yaar, wo pot chodo, mujhe wo nimbu chahiye." Yeah? He might want a nimbu, but that doesn't make for a great team. So you've got to make sure that everybody can see that goal. There is one clear goal and it's visible to the entire organization. Good question to ask yourself. Is that true for your team? Is that true for your organization? Have you managed to ensure that there is clarity? Sometimes we can all be confused with saying, I want that pot and I want those flowers and I want that string too. Doesn't work. If you were to define what's that one thing you need, what's the mountain, what's the goal, what's that one single thing that you're after, and make sure everybody in your team knows what that one thing is. Next one. If you look at how those Govindas get formed, at the bottom of that pyramid are these strong, hefty guys, and then you get some lighter guys and some small kids who go up on top. It cannot work if that guy at the bottom, instead of standing there and ensuring he's firm, keeps moving out and saying, "Abhe kya kar raha hai?" If he does that, everybody's going to come falling down. Equally, that guy on top can't be looking down and saying, "Hey, I hope you're holding on to me firmly." Right? He's got to be trusting those people and saying, "My job is to go and break the pot." Okay? For all of us in teams, I think it's important to learn to trust the teammate. Most of us are very good at doing the other person's job. Just stay focused on doing your job and doing it well. And trust your teammates, trust other people to do their jobs and to do it well. And if you do that, you will find that you've got the making of a great team. Third one, it'll often happen that when you're trying to form this pyramid, those guys come tumbling down. They fall, they get hurt, and when they fall, they don't say, "Arey, bahut dangerous hai, let's go and do something else in our lives." They fall, they get up, and they try and build it one more time. They fall one more time, they say, "Let's get up once again." I think that's a great message. Very often, failure can deter us. Failure can tell us, "Stop doing this." Failure will tell us, "This is a dangerous place to be, go away from here." Don't let that happen. Failure is inevitable. There will be failure at some stage, but you've got to learn to say, "It's just one more time. Okay, I failed. I just need to get back up just once more. If I fall again, I need to get up one more time." If you can get up one more time than the number of times you fall, you will get to whatever you want to achieve. So I think good lesson to remember from those Govindas. Lesson number 4. Think about it. Most of us feel that as leaders, we are lucky. We get all the credit. Our pictures will come in newspapers. You'll be the guy who goes and gets the award. Forget it. Remember that it's people who work with you who make you look good. And I think in the case of the Govindas, they must remember that they may be higher up, but they cannot afford to forget the shoulders that they stand on. And if you ask me, it's a good message, a great lesson for leaders to remember that it's people down the line, it's people across the organization who make us look good. It could be one salesman in some corner of the country. It could be a guy in the factory. It could be an accountant somewhere. These are the people who do the hard work, who do a lot of the work that makes everybody else look good. It makes the leaders, look like great leaders. But the truth is, it's not about the leader. It's about these people who do the hard work, who allow the leader to stand on their shoulders and look like a tall guy. So I think learn to respect those soldiers, learn to respect those foot soldiers. Lesson number 5, and I love this. If you remember how this works on the streets in Mumbai, when the Govindas are forming a pyramid, you'll have women in the balconies in the neighboring buildings throwing water, throwing buckets of water, hoping that you'll slip and fall. And when that happens, the Govindas don't stand and look up and say, "I think we'll file a public interest litigation under section 343 because you guys have done something which is completely incorrect." Rubbish. They don't care. For many of us, when we are trying to achieve a business goal, you will find something happening in the environment which seems to distract you. You will find something happening in the environment which will try and slow you down or make life difficult for you. That's not the time to try and get distracted and saying, "My job now is to fight that." Your job is to stay focused on what it is that you set out to do. In the case of the Govindas, they just laugh it off. Let them throw the water. Our job is to form a pyramid that will go and break that pot. That's what we need to be focused on. And that's what you need to be focused on in your business. There will be distractions. There will be things in the environment. It could be media. It could be policy. It could be competition. Something will come and throw a little spanner in the works. Don't let that bother you too much. Just stay focused on what you wanted to achieve. And the last one is really this, which is, I think it's important to learn to enjoy the ride. If you see those guys, they all wear these banyans with, Parel Panther written on it, or Chinchpokli cheetahs. They're proud of what they're doing. They feel good, they're having fun. They might have different jobs through the year, but on that day they sit together, sing together, eat together. And if you see, I think it's a good picture, all of them singing songs, going to the next place. And in life, it's not just about breaking the next pot and winning another prize. It's, I think, important to learn to enjoy the ride, learn to enjoy what you're doing, learn to have fun in the business that you might be running. Okay? The prize will come, the pot will break, you'll get to where you need to be, but you can't be so obsessed with it that you forget to enjoy the journey. Okay? And therefore, I think learning to enjoy the ride can actually be the biggest lesson that you can take away from all of this. Thank you very much. I think you've been a very patient audience. Before I finish, I just want to share one more story before I end. And that's about someone I think, we've come to respect as perhaps the greatest icon this country has seen. Of course, maybe time to retire, but we'll let that stay for a bit. But I think here's a guy who's given all of us the confidence to believe that someone from India can actually become the world's best. Here's the guy who's won games for us, won championships, won trophies, and made all of us proud as a nation. And I want to tell you a little story, which to me epitomizes what makes Tendulkar such a great leader. It's a little story that Navjot Singh Sidhu loves to tell. Now, some of you might argue Sidhu can't be telling you a great story. It's a story about Sachin's debut series. This is 1989. India versus Pakistan. Young 16-year-old Tendulkar playing his first series in Pakistan. It's the 4th test match at Faisalabad. And second innings, India's in trouble. We are 39 for 4. And, the fast bowlers, Waqar Younis and Wasim Akram, really letting the ball fly, and the wickets green. And Sidhu's at the non-striker's end when the 16-year-old kid comes out to bat. And Tendulkar, all fuzzy hair, clean shaven, well, never shaven, comes out to bat. And Waqar Younis bowls a bouncer, which catches Tendulkar on the nose. And he starts bleeding. And before you know it, the blood has gone from his nose to his glove to his shirt. And I'm told that most women watching television at that time said there should be a law to prevent young children from being subjected to such cruelty. And Sidhu says, I was standing over there and I was worried. He says, I had seen so many young cricketers with promise just die away or just go away because they got hit early in their lives. A hit like that can actually destroy your confidence for the rest of your life. And Sidhu says, I was worried for this kid. And he remembers walking up to Tendulkar at the other end, and Ali Irani, who was the physio, came running with his first aid kit. And they both looked at Tendulkar and said, Tendulkar, Sachin, to retire hurt, come back to the pavilion. And Sidhu felt that would be a good thing to do because Sachin to, wapas chale ja, retire hurt. And Tendulkar looked at Sachin, Tendulkar looked at Sidhu with that steely look which we've all come to now know. And he said 2 words. He said, Main khelega. Yeah. And like Sidhu Paji puts it, he says, those 2 words transformed a little kid into a giant. Those 2 words told you that you're not looking at just another batsman, you're looking at someone who can truly take on the world. Because for Sachin, it wasn't about, he could have gone back to the dressing room. It would have been good for him. He could have gone back and said, let me try and take some rest and come back. The bowlers would have got tired, I can come back and score some runs. For Sachin, he couldn't do that because his team needed him to stand there and fight. And he scored a 57, I think, and Sidhu hit some 90 odd, and they managed to save the game for India. But I think it's in those 2 words where Sachin says, it's not about me, it's about my team. It's not about my comfort, it's about what my team needs. And I think it's this ability to fight when things go wrong that truly separates the greats from the also-rans. So next time you find that you're in trouble, that your business is not doing what it should be doing, or there's a particular customer who's becoming difficult and you feel like saying, to hell with it, let me get out of this, don't say that. Say, main khelega. That's the time to stand up and say, main khelega. And you know what? As leaders, you will find this, that when you're in trouble, you look at your team and your whole team is looking and saying, hum to mar gaye, dub gaye, lut gaye. And you need one man out there who puts his hand up and says, main khelega. And when one man puts his hand up and says, main khelega, you'll find another guy looks at him and says, main bhi khelega. Then a third guy will say, main bhi khelega. And then you'll soon have a team which is saying, we'll fight. Thank you very much. I think you've been a fantastic audience here. Really appreciate this. Thanks, Archana.
Thank you, Sal. I think that was really inspiring. We flew kites together. We caught rabbits together. We were part of the we made a sculpture, and I think we really went for a great ride. And the biggest is main khelega. I think that is the biggest lesson that all of us will learn, and I think we'll play it like a sport. I'll quickly like to call Mr. Deepak Balani on the stage, please, to felicitate Mr. Prakash Iyer. It's a small token of our appreciation. And a big round of applause, please. I think he totally deserves it. It's a change agent that we have here.
Thank you very much. Oh, appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks very much.